We have another big day of news regarding NHL waivers. We had a lot of players on waivers yesterday. Were any of them claimed and who's on waivers today? We'll discuss all that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have some more NHL waivers news. This is going to be a trend here for the next coming days as NHL teams make more cuts and get their roster set for the upcoming NHL season. Sens fans especially were a little bit nervous after getting the news yesterday that some, I guess you could say favored prospects were once again being cut and being placed on waivers, some of which for the first time, including Jacob Bernard-Docker, Igor Sokolov, were probably the two most common names you've seen on social media regarding, fans showing their displeasure or, whatnot. Of course, they recently lost Lassie Thompson. And then, of course, there's also Matthew Highmore, Jacob Larsson. I think they're a little less surprised about those names. But the good news for Sens fans is everybody that was on waivers yesterday has indeed cleared. So nobody will be lost with no return for the Sens or any other team who had players on waivers yesterday. As we talked about in yesterday's video, I thought the Ottawa Senators players certainly headlined the group of players that were available, and apparently there were no takers. So I guess that in itself is good. However, there are reports that both players will certainly be demoted to Belleville, which will create some cap space, which is good. It'll hopefully help them get a step closer to getting Shane Pinto signed. But there's been some other developments there as well, including the fact that Josh Norris is not practicing today. Because of that, there's certainly more concern over his health and whether or not he'll be able to start the season. So if he goes on LTIR, that could buy them some time to have to make some tough decisions and maybe get a few players to be able to kind of rotate in and out or try some things as they get used to life without Norris yet again, if that's indeed going to be the case. We don't know that for sure. The Sens still are saying that they're optimistic that he will play in the final preseason contest against Montreal, which is on Saturday. And I don't know, though. To me, based on the fact that he's had multiple setbacks without playing a game, he's missed basically a full season, plus the end of the year before. It's just not good. There's red flags going off everywhere here with Norris, and as much as you don't want him to be out of the lineup, it does solve some issues cap-wise. But you would much prefer to have him be that number 2 center. Otherwise, you don't feel like the team is as deep. And with a team that's looking to make big steps this year and have high expectations, it's concerning to say the least. Now, of course, there's also been some talk from Bruce Garriock of the Ottawa Sun and TSN saying that there was a fair bit of interest in Igor Sokolov. So I do wonder if he could be involved in a trade. So I don't think Sens fans are completely clear here from seeing some activity. I think they're probably going to be a little bit patient here, continue working on trying to get Pinto signed, and then they'll either have to move a body out if Norris can play, and if he can't, put him on LTIR, give him some time to continue recovering for a while, and hope that he can return later in the season. So ultimately, Sokolov could be used in a trade if they need to do that. It sounds like there was interest there, but maybe they would just need a roster spot. Because that's a question I get a lot. Well, why would somebody not take a player on waivers but then trade for them? It's like because they like the player, but they need a player of their own off their own roster to go out to make it work. So there's always that possibility. So stay tuned. Lots of juggling still to do in the nation's capital. Now, today we got a bunch more players on waivers yet again. Some of these names are interesting. Be curious to see if we have any claims tomorrow. We have new today, include Anaheim Ducks, a couple defensemen, Robert Hagg and Colton White. In Boston, we have Jason Megna. In Buffalo, we have Brett Murray. In Minnesota, we have a bunch of players here, including Nick Petan. Nick Petan has been on waivers just about more than anybody, I think, in the last few years. Jujhar Khaira, who was recently signed to a 1-year, 2-way deal. Vinny Lettieri and Dakota Mermis. So there's some interesting names there. Like Petan, maybe. Khaira, it's hard to say. There might be interest there. New Jersey has young defenseman Cal Foote. I mean, he's big. He's right shot. He comes from a hockey family. He's all been around the game his whole life. might be an interesting one there. Mark Jankowski in Nashville is also on waivers. The San Jose Sharks have Leon Gawanke on waivers, and Winnipeg has Jeffrey Veal. So there's a few names there. I mean, whether it be, if you want somebody with a little bit more experience, like Hag or White, you got Kara, Foote, maybe Patan. I think Megna's been on the waiver wire a few times. So, there could be some activity there. There's still going to be more interesting names, I think, coming up as we get closer to the end of camp. Teams are certainly kind of saving the best for last because they are obviously names that would be closer to making the NHL roster, or lots of teams are hesitating putting their number 3 goalie on because they need the cap space and they don't want to carry 3 goalies because it's not good for anybody. Number of teams there. I know Caden Primo in Montreal, maybe Martin Jones in Toronto, Magnus Hellberg in Pittsburgh is another one. There's definitely some goalies out there, and I guess they're probably all worried about Tampa, who needs a goalie because of Vasilevsky's injury, and then there's Colorado because of Francouz's injury. They're probably thinking, geez, when our goalie goes on, if we're, they're going to get plucked. And they're probably trying to be strategic about when they place the player on waivers to kind of create the best odd scenario. But that's tricky to do because, I don't know how they go about deciding when is the best time. I guess once they see that team or those teams pick up other guys, might be best. At some point, though, these teams have to become cap compliant, but the Lightning are going to be watching real close, and ultimately somebody is going to have to blink. So we'll see what happens on that front, but I wouldn't be shocked if some of these goalies are kind of held and wait and trying to wait out the other teams, that hoping somebody else will go first, and they will be less likely to get picked up and get their guy through that they can place in the minors and have available for call-ups. At the end of the day, though, it's a busy time of year. NHL teams are making their roster cuts, getting down close to their roster, and certainly a lot of these players need waivers. So we'll see. That's your waiver update for today. There will be back later with another round of NHL news and some trade talk from around the league as well, so stay tuned for that. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.